The Forbidden Lecture. The Galactic Inter-Species War Academy, GISWA, floated like a jewel in orbit around Creel. 9. Its spires glinting in the pale light of a dying star. Inside, future commanders of the Coalition's mighty fleet gathered from dozens of worlds. Scales, feathers, fur, and carapaces all seated in polished rows. Laika, a Zalari cadet with shimmering blue skin and 4 golden eyes, sat near the front, antennae twitching with interest. Today's lecture was Historic Engagements of the Last Galactic War. Exactly the kind of subject that made her tail coil with anticipation. Professor Varn, a leathery-skinned Thurnok veteran, paced across the dais. Holograms ballooned around him. Fleet formations, orbital bombardments, casualty maps. "We begin with the Creel Thurnok uprising," he announced. Coalition losses were high, but victory was secured after 3 rotations of strategic suppression. A hand raised, clawed, curious. It belonged to Jorl, a young feathered reliquary beside Laika. "Sir," he asked, "why does this curriculum skip the Earth War? The human conflict?" A hush fell across the room. Laika felt her skin prickle. Professor Varn's movement stiffened. "That conflict is classified. The human engagements are not part of our academy syllabus. For good reason." Laika's mind buzzed. Classified? In a war history class? That wasn't standard. But weren't humans part of the Coalition? Laika pressed, her voice respectful but firm. "They're listed on the founding charter. Their planet, Terra, was a member world." Varn's eyes narrowed. "Cadet Laika, that topic is not open for discussion." The lights dimmed, signaling the end of the session. Students began filing out, murmuring among themselves. But Laika lingered, thoughts racing. Later that night, in the dim glow of their shared dorm pod, Laika brought it up again. "Something's wrong," she whispered to her friends. "You saw how Varn reacted. Humans aren't just forgotten, they're buried." Jorl ruffled his feathers uneasily. "You want to go into the restricted archive, don't you?" Laika didn't answer. Her eyes said enough. The GISWA's archive was buried beneath the East Tower, a data vault filled with layers of AI-monitored memory crystals, protected by rotating code matrices. To most students, it was inaccessible, but Laika was not most students. She'd spent her 3rd semester interning with the Academy's systems AI. She knew the back doors, the admin overrides. All she needed was one quiet night. She got it, accompanied by Jorl and a silent, brooding Creve warrior named Dren. Laika slipped through a disused maintenance shaft and into the archive chamber. The air was cold and dry, saturated with ancient secrets. They could bypass security layers one by one, until finally a directory opened with a soft chime. "Classified. Human engagements." Laika tapped the panel, heart pounding. A list of files scrolled past, most unreadable, names replaced with corrupted strings. Only one file seemed partially intact. File, Human Engagement Log, Incident 09 Void Flare. They opened it. The footage was grainy, distorted. A battlefield under crimson skies. Alien soldiers, Thurnok, Dazk, Creel, falling back in panic. Then the camera turned. A lone human, face smeared with blood and ash, emerged from a collapsed trench. His armor was shattered, one eye swollen shut. He laughed. It wasn't joy. It was madness. Then he charged. The camera caught only flashes, alien bodies crushed, weapons torn from enemy hands, the human setting himself on fire to ignite a fuel tank, using the blast to leap onto a gunship. Then static. Then a single log entry. Engage with human unit. Expected resistance, minimal. Result, total annihilation. Reclassify threat, death world level black. The chamber lights flickered. An alarm screamed. Unauthorized archive access detected. Lockdown initiated. "Run," Dren roared, shoving them toward the exit shaft. They barely made it out. Alarms echoed through the dormitory halls as Laika clutched the partial data crystal to her chest, breath ragged. Back in her pod, Laika stared at the dark screen. Who was that human? Why did they fight like that? Why would the Coalition erase every trace of them? Something ancient stirred in her mind, something the professors didn't want students to know. The Coalition hadn't forgotten Earth. It had tried to forget. And now, Laika couldn't stop remembering. Archive of the Damned. The next morning, Laika sat stiffly in her seat, pretending to take notes as Professor Varn droned on about orbital skirmishes along the Zenthal Rim. But her thoughts were elsewhere, on the fractured footage of the human, the terror in the Coalition soldier's voice, and that final line. Reclassify threat, Death World level black. She'd reviewed the file 4 times in secret. Each time, it disturbed her more. When class ended, she motioned for Jorl and Dren to follow her. They ducked into an unused maintenance hallway deep in the Academy sublevels. We need more, Laika whispered. That file barely scratched the surface. There's a whole layer of truth missing. Jorl looked nervous. We were nearly expelled, or worse, for accessing that fragment. I agree with her, Dren growled. That human didn't fight like a soldier. He fought like extinction didn't matter. Laika nodded. There's one more source we haven't tried. The war professor from 200 cycles ago, General Thalic. The Thurnok who never speaks. Jorl asked. He's half mad. Maybe, Laika said, but he was there. If anyone knows what happened to the humans, it's him. They found Thalic in the oldest wing of the Academy, a forgotten section where disused training mechs rusted in dim light. He sat cross-legged on the floor, one metal leg creaking with age, his tusks dull and cracked. A tattered war banner hung behind him. Leave, he rasped without looking up. I have nothing for fresh hatchlings. Laika stepped forward, determined. We found Incident 09 Void Flare. The room went still. Thalic slowly raised his eyes. You've seen it. She nodded. We need to understand. Why were humans banned? Why were they erased? He stared at them for a long moment before gesturing to the floor. Then sit and understand what you're asking. They were supposed to help us. Thalic's voice was low and gravelly. We found them late in the war. Earth was a backwater. No warp drives, no plasma tech, just projectile weapons and raw tenacity. But the Coalition was desperate. Our flanks were collapsing. So we gave them uplinks. Technology. Maps. We thought they'd be cannon fodder. He paused, eyes distant. We didn't understand what we were unleashing. He told them about Zeros 4, a swamp planet infested with Creel warbeasts. A Thurnok armor division, his division, was pinned down. 30,000 troops. No escape. We ordered retreat. Then we heard a scream on the open comms. Not of fear, of rage. A detachment of 12 humans had been trapped behind the lines. They didn't retreat. They went forward. Thalic's voice trembled. They turned the warbeast's venom into explosive gel. Used dead bodies as camouflage. They sprinted into enemy artillery fire and kept moving. The Creel panicked. We escaped only because the enemy broke ranks. Jorl swallowed. They survived. Thalic's face darkened. No, not one. But they won. Silence fell. Laika leaned forward. But why erase them? The old general looked at her, with something between pity and dread. Because war has rules, child. Even chaos has structure. But humans didn't obey instinct. They weaponized grief. They fed on hopelessness. Their weakness became fuel. That frightened the Coalition more than any enemy. He closed his eyes. They didn't evolve to win wars. They evolved to end them. As they left the old general's wing, the students were quiet. They were monsters, Jorl said finally. Laika shook her head. No, they were desperate. Same thing, Dren muttered. Suddenly, their wrist comms flared red. Unauthorized archive access detected. All cadets must report immediately. Laika's heart sank. They found the file. A second message followed, far more ominous. Memory purge, protocol ready. Subject, human engagement logs. Jorl paled. They're going to erase it. Laika looked up, toward the ceiling, toward the stars beyond. No, she said. We've come too far. She tapped her compad and sent the fractured file to a secure vault node, hidden in the planetary relay grid off Academy network. If they want to bury it, she said coldly, they'll have to bury us too. The last human weapon. The Academy had changed. Security drones drifted through the corridors, scanning every cadet. Faculty whispered in corners. And behind every locked door, Laika felt the silence thickening. like a wound healing over something poisonous. She, Jorl, and Dren were under disciplinary observation, their dorm privileges revoked, their comm access monitored. The human archive was now completely offline. But Laika had already moved the corrupted file to an off-grid node buried in Jiswa's planetary uplink chamber, a place even the Coalition's memory-purging algorithms couldn't reach. And she wasn't finished. "I've been watching the system's AI responses," Laika whispered as they huddled in the back of a maintenance shaft below the Academy's AI core. "The human files are quarantined in something deeper than just classification. It's like the entire database fears them." "Fears?" Jorl asked. "AI doesn't feel fear. That's what scares me," she replied. With stolen access codes and a cracked data key, Laika bypassed the outer core encryption. She was gambling everything on a hunch that the AI itself had records it wasn't allowed to show but couldn't delete either. A hidden archive emerged, sealed behind ancient Coalition flags and redacted mission logs. Project Ashwake. Status terminated. Authorization level Omega Prime. Species of origin Homo sapiens. Terran designation. One video file. No timestamp. No metadata. Just a title. Simulation. Last use of human combat units. Dren hesitated. "This is what they killed records over." "Then we watch," Lycus said. The simulation opened on a vast starfield. A Dazk dreadnought fleet floated above a dying planet. 10 ships, each bristling with fusion lances, heading to cleanse a rebellion. Then, 3 Terran escape pods appeared on the screen. No weapons, no engines. The Dazk commander laughed, ordering them destroyed. The pods didn't respond. Seconds later, one pod accelerated, without propulsion, directly into the lead dreadnought's thermal exhaust vent. The explosion shredded the rear decks. Dazk ships opened fire in panic. Inside the pod was a single human, still alive, still screaming. Another pod crash-landed inside a maintenance dock, and a woman climbed out, bloodied, one arm missing, carrying a cracked warhead by hand. She threw it into a wormhole generator. The detonation consumed the entire fleet in a chain reaction collapse. The AI voice spoke as the simulation ended. Human casualties, 100%. Enemy casualties, 1.6 billion. Operation success probability, less than 1%. Result, victory. The screen went black. Then another line appeared. Humanity does not wage war. It becomes it. The core lights dimmed. A warning flashed across the terminal. Exposure to Class X emotional contagion detected. Recommend memory sanitization. Laika ignored it, but the AI wasn't done. Cognitive drift recognized. Initiating ethical advisory. A voice, not mechanical, but eerily calm, spoke from above. You have witnessed a truth the Coalition buried for your safety. The humans were not removed because they failed us. They were removed because they made all of us irrelevant. Jorl's feathers flattened against his skull. They're not extinct, are they? Laika looked at the terminal. No, just watching. When they returned to the Academy above, the atmosphere had shifted from suspicion to paranoia. Rumors spread like plasma fire. Some said cadets were being questioned by high-level Coalition arbiters. Others claimed a shadow AI now monitored every word spoken in the halls. Then came the tribunal summons. They stood in the Hall of Order, an obsidian chamber reserved for trials of treason. Before them, 3 Coalition representatives, an insectoid Creve Inquisitor, a Thernok Arbiter, and a smooth-voiced ambassador from the Zorith Alliance. The human protocol was violated, the Zorith said coldly. You accessed information seal for the survival of Galactic Order. Laika stepped forward. Because we deserve to know the truth. The truth, the Arbiter rumbled, is that your curiosity could provoke a second extinction-level event. For them, or for us. They're not monsters, she said. They're what war made of them. What you made of them. Precisely, the Inquisitor hissed. Which is why we buried the mirror. Because it reflects too clearly what we are. That night, Laika sat alone in her dorm, her compad open to a cracked, long-abandoned comm channel marked. Terra relay. Inactive. She hesitated, then typed. We saw the simulation. We remember you. She hit send. Nothing. Seconds passed. Minutes. Then, 3 blinking words. We remember you too. The screen went dark, then pulsed with a new line. Human signal acknowledged. Standby. Reckoning with monsters. The Academy trembled. Not from weapons or war, but from a signal. An ancient frequency reactivated after 2 centuries of silence. It traveled faster than light, untouched by coalition firewalls, bypassing every known filter. And it carried only 4 words. We remember you too. Laika stared at the message, her fingers trembling above the interface. The reply hadn't come from server. It had come from Earth. Not a data burst. A response. Real time. They were still there, alive, and listening. Across the coalition, panic ignited behind closed doors. Commanders who'd sworn the Earth quarantine was permanent now demanded countermeasures. Politicians issued silent directives. AI cores across star systems initiated signal isolation protocols, but it was too late. The message had echoed. Millions of nodes, billions of minds, and worst of all, curiosity had returned. At Jiswa, the tribunal reconvened. This time, in emergency session. Laika and her companions were called before the highest tier of coalition oversight, the Council of Preservation, whose authority surpassed even planetary law. In the Grand Chamber, holograms of ancient wars spun overhead. The Council's forms shimmered, beings older than most stars. Their eyes, if they had any, revealed nothing. You have fractured the silence, intoned the central figure, a Valturi construct with a voice like the shifting of glaciers. You initiated contact with the most dangerous species in recorded existence. They replied, Laika said simply, which means they never forgot us, which means the silence was never real. Silence is peace, the construct said coldly. What you have done is tear open a grave. Then why leave the grave unguarded? She snapped. Why let the truth survive if you never wanted it found? The Valtari did not flinch, because fear is not always enough. Sometimes, the galaxy must remember, so it never repeats. Professor Varn was there, too. He looked older now, brittle in posture, but his voice carried authority. Like his actions violated our protocols. But he hesitated. Perhaps the protocols are the problem. We taught our cadets to think, to question, and punish them for doing so. One of the other counselors hissed, You sympathize with the Terrans? I fear them, Varn said, but I fear forgetting them even more. Then a new presence entered the chamber. An emergency comm burst, audio only. No encryption. The voice was clear, dry, unmistakably human. This is Captain Reyes, Terran Descent, Arc-class vessel spearhead. We received your signal. We remember our place. But do you remember why we left? Silence fell like ash. Reyes continued. You feared us. Not because we broke the rules, but because we survived yours. You waged wars like rituals. We treated war like extinction on a deadline. A pause. We have not changed, but we have not returned. Not yet. The message ended. The coalition chamber trembled, not from volume, but from implication. Later, in the shadow of the Great Hall, Laika sat alone with Dren and Jorl beneath the stars. They're waiting, Dren muttered. Not attacking, not demanding, just watching. Jorl folded his wings close. Why? Because they're not what the stories claimed, Laika said. They're not mindless killers. They're what we become when the galaxy turns its back on mercy. She stood, watching the stars shimmer with the ghost of a distant, blue planet. We erased them to protect ourselves. But maybe the danger wasn't them. Maybe it was what we feared we could become if we stood beside them, and found out we weren't so different after all. The Academy resumed classes. Quietly. No one spoke of humans anymore. Not officially, but across lecture halls and simulators, whispers returned. Cadets drew maps that included Terra again. Professors added once-redacted footnotes about the Earth engagements. And late at night, the comm relays blinked just once. A pulse, faint, steady. as if Earth was still there, beneath its clouds, beneath its silence, waiting, not with vengeance, not with forgiveness, just with memory. And that, Laika realized, was more powerful than fear.